For more on today's top political stories, I want to bring in Zeke Miller and Tyler Pager. Zeke is a CBS News political contributor, a White House reporter for the Associated Press, and often my next-door neighbor during White House briefings. And Tyler is a White House reporter for The Washington Post. Thank you both for joining us today. Zeke, I want to start with you because President Biden has been hammering home for quite some time now how much the U.S. and NATO are really aligned when it comes to deterring Russia. After he met with Chancellor Scholz today, did we get any more clarity about that plan moving forward on how they will do that?
Well, there was that big bear hug that we saw on stage today where President Biden sort of very quickly saying that there is no reason to doubt the strength of the U.S.-German alliance and Germany's commitment to NATO, which had been some speculation over the last several days, particularly some comments coming out of Ukraine. But the most interesting thing that came out of that exchange today was really what wasn't said, and sort of have to use a little bit of the transitive property there. Chancellor Scholz did not say anything about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, that controversial pipeline that is under construction to transport natural gas and oil products between Russia directly into Germany. The U.S. has said that's potentially destabilizing, and Ukraine has looked at that very unfavorably. He didn't say anything about it. At the same time, he said that there was no daylight between the German government position and the United States position. One thing we heard from President Biden again today is that if Russia were to further invade Ukraine with troops and tanks, that pipeline would not go online. So we didn't quite hear it from Chancellor Scholz himself, but the implication there is that Germany and the United States are on board, and that's a significant threat from the West that could potentially keep President Putin and Russia in check here.
Right. There certainly was an opportunity for the chancellor to say that, but it was almost as though the president was speaking for him, especially when he refused to double down on that. So we have to see if he made that promise in private. But I want to take a hard turn now to COVID because, Tyler, the vaccine and mask mandates have been flashpoints, as you know, across the country for some time now. New Jersey and Delaware, two states run by Democratic governors, are now moving to lift school mask mandates, even though that's not what the CDC recommends. So what is the White House saying about this?
Yeah, there is some daylight now between the White House and Democratic governors, something we have rarely seen throughout this pandemic, as the Democrats have tried to stay united in the mantra of follow the science and let science lead the policy decisions. But as we see cases decrease across the country, particularly in the Northeast, we're seeing governors take steps to end the mask mandates and recommend that schools do not put them in place, leaving those decisions to school districts. But today at the White House press briefing, Jen Psaki was asked about this and said it's the White House's recommendation to continue to follow CDC guidance, which recommends that school districts continue to have masks in place in schools. But I think we're starting to see Democratic governors step up and try to chart their own path forward out of this pandemic. In conversations I've had with Democratic governors and their staff in recent days, it's become clear that they wanted to take this step and show that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And as the cases go down, as the vaccine is widely available and other treatments, and as they move toward making vaccines available, the administration hopes for children under 5, they feel that this is an appropriate time to begin to take away some of these restrictions. I think the interesting thing will be how the White House responds moving forward as cases continue to decrease, and whether they follow suit with some of these Democratic governors and recommend loosening some COVID restrictions.
Of course, it's not just mask restrictions. The administration has also tried to use vaccine mandates as a tool. But Zeke, a number of judges in lower courts are considering challenges to the administration's COVID vaccine requirements after the Supreme Court's somewhat mixed guidance about what to do. So what is the general takeaway about the federal government's ability to impose a vaccine mandate?
There's certainly a lot more skepticism now about how well those sorts of vaccine mandates from the federal level can stand up to judicial scrutiny, and particularly outside of the healthcare space where we saw the Supreme Court uphold that one. But that broader OSHA rule, which was going to come down from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration for large employers, the Supreme Court put a stay on that. And we saw the Department of Labor withdrew that rule. But it seems like we're heading in the direction of, as Tyler pointed out, just like masks are sort of the conversation around the pathway out of the pandemic shifting from Washington to the states, where we could see the vaccine mandate conversation shift from outside of Washington to the states. We've seen some school districts begin to impose vaccination mandates, just like for COVID-19, the same way they have for measles and all sorts of other childhood diseases and the like. That seems to be the vanguard of where the vaccine mandate conversation is moving in the next couple of months and years.
Of course, the White House has always said that COVID is related to the economic crisis as well. They also insist that the president's social spending plan, Build Back Better, is one way to alleviate some of the financial pressures that families continue to feel. But the president has already conceded that that's going to probably have to be broken up into chunks. So, Tyler, I wonder, how is Congress doing on that? Have they made any progress in presenting something that's smaller, but just as impactful with these smaller pieces?
Yeah, I think the White House would like to see more progress on this front than has been made. Just today, First Lady Jill Biden conceding in a speech that free community college is not going to be part of that package, at least in the short term. I think what it really comes down to, and what Democrats have finally come to reckon with, is that really it's up to Senator Joe Manchin and what he wants ultimately in some of this legislative packaging, and exactly what that looks like, I think remains unclear. And I think there's some anxiety in the Democratic caucus over how to move forward and how to get Senator Joe Manchin on board. He's raised a bunch of concerns throughout the legislative process over this second piece of the president's agenda. And one of the things that he's raised concerns about is inflation and how this package could exacerbate already high inflation. Joe Manchin has signaled he wants to see that start to decrease before moving forward on this legislation. We have not seen that yet. So I think that's one of the barriers to moving forward on this. But I think a lot of people in the White House want to see some progress being made, especially as we approach the midterms and Democrats could lose control of the House and the Senate.
From COVID to the economy to some internal staffing issues now, I know the White House is not happy that the name Eric Lander is sucking up a whole lot of oxygen today. He is, of course, the top science advisor for the president. Zeke, tell us why we keep hearing about Eric Lander and about the White House's investigation into his behavior. And by the way, Tyler, I know you've done a lot of reporting this as well, so go ahead and jump in anytime you want.
Yeah, so Eric Lander, as you mentioned, is the top science advisor to President Biden. He is also somebody who a White House internal investigation found harassed and sort of verbally berated his staff on multiple occasions in violation of the White House workplace policy. He's apologized to his staff in an email Friday that was first reported by Politico. And today, the White House is confirming the result of that report. It's nothing new for there to be difficult bosses in town like Washington. The big change, though, is one of President Biden's first promises to the American people just hours after being sworn into office was that he wanted his staff to treat their colleagues respectfully, and if they didn't, they'd be out the door on the spot. And Eric Lander is still in that job today, and the White House is rallying to defend him, saying that there's taking some corrective action, and then they will monitor his compliance with that going forward. But the president's on the spot declaration seems not to apply in this instance.
Tyler, how's the White House responding to that? I mean, the president's words are on the record. He made so clear that he would not tolerate this very type of behavior.
Yeah, as Zeke said, this is something that I think a lot of people are frustrated about. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was grilled by reporters today about why there is this daylight between what the president said and what has resulted with Eric Lander. In speaking with sources at the White House, there's deep frustration that he has not been fired. They feel that President Biden set a very clear standard for workplace behavior, and Eric Lander violated that. And a White House investigation found that there were credible reports of harassment and belittling of staff. And so in speaking with people today at the White House, there's a lot of frustration about that. And so Jen Psaki today didn't really have a clear answer for why there is this disparity between what President Biden said on the first day he would do and what he has done, which is not fire Eric Lander, who remains employed at the White House.
And I want to ask you, Tyler, about a story that the Washington posts broke about the previous administration. The National Archives said on Monday afternoon that they arranged for the transport of several boxes of documents from former President Trump's Florida home. What can you tell us about what is in those boxes?
Yeah, my colleagues here at the Post have been breaking a lot of news about President Trump's disregard for the laws about record keeping when he was president, and continues today's story about the National Archives having to go down to Florida to retrieve some of the documents that are their property under the record keeping laws. And as you mentioned, the National Archives putting out a statement confirming that report. And those boxes, there's a lot in there. Some of those things include letters, those quote unquote love letters that then President Trump talked about between him and the North Korean leader. I think there's the letter that former President Obama left for Donald Trump when he took office is also included in those boxes. But there's a lot of documents there, and there's more that they're still trying to get their hands on. And I think this, again, is causing a lot of concern given the laws about how presidents have to keep documents, but also now we're seeing the importance of them as the January 6th committee investigates the events leading up to the insurrection that day, and the importance of being able to have the documents from the White House that clearly the then President Donald Trump and his aides did not abide by those rules and continue to disregard them even after he leaves the White House.
All right, Tyler Pager and Zeke Miller, thank you for covering so much ground with us today, and we'll see you soon.